everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to my channel. This is all a different setup today. I'm loving this. I mean, to me, all of these little, security foil wrapping papers, the little bubble wrapping paper, whatever you want to call it. It's just so reminiscent of the 80s and 90s. I don't know why. It's a very particular type of aesthetic when this was used as background for photos in the 90s and in the 80s. It was just a thing. Slightly trash, slightly in bad taste, but because it has a flavor of pop culture that's kind of gone, it's a bad taste that is so delicious in a way, because it reminds us of times long gone. So anyway, I have like 3 or 4 layers of it just for it to reflect light differently in different parts, because I want to do an unboxing and a quick review of something that I've never done before. I've just, you see, here we go, the 90s. Paul Gaultier CLASSIQUE, the eau de toilette, 100 milliliter can. I love unboxing these. I very rarely buy them, but the last one in eau de toilette that I have had or still have, is a couple of droplets left, is the 20 milliliter spray version. Very rare. These are not in production at the moment because Prestige, that used to produce Paul Gaultier fragrances, does not produce them anymore. This was still from Prestige. Now it's Puig, which is a bit sad in my opinion. Antonio Puig, Check out who Puig is and what other perfumes they make, and you'll be a bit shocked. But I purchased this because most of the new fragrances from Gaultier, all of them in the past, as they were Prestige, they were made in France, right? The new ones that are being released are made in Spain. But Classique is still in the eau de toilette form, made in France. We can check it out at the bottom here. There it is. Made in France. So, just to be safe, before they damage this fragrance, which has stayed true to itself throughout the decades, even the packaging, the bottle, it used to just say Paul Gaultier, but then as Le Male came in, he named this one Classique. You don't have to say Le Classique, it's just Classic. It's just like Paul Gaultier Classique or Classique. And it lives up to its name because it has stayed true to itself. The fragrance hasn't changed almost at all, eau de toilette form, throughout the decades. And the can as well, the iconic can, almost reminiscent of Popeye and his spinach can. That's why, oftentimes we have Le Male connected to Popeye. And Classique, in some ways, could be connected to olive oil, but olive oil is the privilege of Moschino. So that's why if Paul Gaultier pairs anybody up with Popeye, it's Betty Boop in this case, which we have seen also in the past, the Betty Boop version of Classique paired up with the Popeye version of Le Male. But I also have those in my collection. But this is a particular unboxing of, and maybe a quick review, just to give it a flavor of Classique. And the fact that he renamed Paul Gaultier just the Paul Gaultier fragrance really soon, we're talking early 90s, already in the mid-90s, he added the Classique or Classic name to it, even though it was a very young perfume back then. Still, the Classique stayed as name of the female. We know the fragrances are genderless, but this is just to give it some sort of context why he named it. But anyway, all the gender aside, the fact that after so many decades, it's still around, it's still the same bottle, it's still the same scent, it lived up to its name, you know what I mean? Very rarely does, it's a classic now. There you have it. That's what I was going for. Thank you, Dacob, for taking 10 minutes to say it. But no fragrance really had the audacity, and this is also something very 90s, to come out and give itself a name as Classic. It's his first perfume. It's the first perfume he made, and he called it Classic. Like, he knew it was going to become a classic, and it is. Why do I go for the eau de toilette? Well, the first one released was the pure perfume. It was just Paul Gaultier. In the bustier, the little metal splash bottle, which I also have in my collection. You could check out that photo of that particular perfume on my Instagram, superdacob, all spelled together. But shortly after that, the eau de toilette was released. a bit longer after that in time, the eau de parfum was released. So the eau de toilette is the closest to the concept of a mass-released fragrance, because the pure perfume wasn't that mass-released. I mean, it was, but you know how... I mean, in the 90s, people purchased pure perfume more than they... definitely more than they do today. But the eau de toilette was the first approach to the feel of Jean-Paul Gaultier. In fact, also very classic, the fact that this particular bottle has, you know, his bustier, even has the Gaultier on the bum there, the logo. Very simple. We have the almost the iced glass that represents the corset or guêpière, and then you have the transparent glass for the rest of the body. This particular torso has been dressed in many different ways throughout the decades. The bottle has seen many different outfits, but the eau de toilette in its classic form stays so simply, elegantly put, with the smoked, iced glass with the transparent glass, and nothing more, nothing less. One of the most iconic renditions of the outfits that the eau de toilette has worn were, of course, the Madonna outfits from the Blonde Ambition tour. One was a velvety, orangey, reddish cone bra that would kind of really stick out, like the male dancers wore at Madonna's Blonde Ambition tour in the 90s. But then we also have which he called the bottle, the Rock and Roll Star bottle, which was Madonna's iconic corset in gold with all the strings falling from the sides from the famous scene like a virgin on her bed in the Blonde Ambition tour. You could check that out. And for those of you who know what I mean, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't know, check it out. Get an education. The bottle itself, also very new back then. Very, very revolutionary. Why? Because it's a spray, but it doesn't have a lid. Instead, to homage the famous fragrances from the past, the pure perfumes, the Guerlains and all the others, you know, the pure perfume bottles would have little tassels hanging from them out of silk or something, and then would have a frizzy little decor almost to the stoppers of the fragrances. And Gaultier, as whimsical as he was in particular in the 90s, played with that, twisted it, turned it, and used that concept as we have here, but in a very functional and pragmatic and almost utilitarian aesthetic. And the utilitarian aesthetic is something very typical to Gaultier. He actually made it very famous in the 90s, and that's why, to this date, if we know Madonna, we cannot detach her from her iconic cone bra and her corsets that were Gaultier. She wouldn't be her without him, without his corsets, and his brand wouldn't be his brand without Madonna's talent, dancing abilities, choreography, stage presence, and music. But so the utilitarian style also kind of came into her aesthetic, because if we watch Express Yourself, the video, that's what I'm talking about, this metropolis, this Fritz Lang metropolis meets utilitarian style, which we also see in this kind of metallic style, which is still typical to Gaultier. Whenever he brings out an advertisement, an ad or commercial for Le Male or Classique, there's always some sort of metal gears involved. Also, the most famous sunglasses and eyewear from the 90s from Jean-Paul Gaultier were made in Japan, by the way. Also are all very, very technical. The frames and the temples are made out of metal gears and screws and rivets, and everything is screwed together. It almost looks like it's a machine of sorts. And that's what the Express Yourself video is. And that is also how Madonna opens her Blonde Ambition tour, with all the gears and the metal and almost kind of a utilitarian but also enslaved dystopian future that she depicts for us. So this is what we have here. And he transformed that pure, luxurious aspect of the tassels falling off of the stoppers of perfume bottles into a utilitarian thing. It just says, tire, pull. So pull me off, and you pull the security tag off so that you could actually spray the sprayer. And once you put this on, you click it in there, you're kind of protected. here, you see, you can't really go down with the sprayer. So you could, I still wouldn't really just throw this in the bag. It's still quite risque, but it's just a beautiful concept. This is very Gaultier. Nobody else has this. So the fact that he transformed something so classic, you know, these little pullable embellishments to bottles, not pullable, he made it pullable, but these embellishments to bottles have become something practical, and it's just genius. So there is a plastic foil surrounding the can. I bought the biggest one available, which is 100 milliliter. Also typical color, this kind of rosy color. Well, this bottle is quite old. The juice in there has turned to amber, but it's, you're going to see here, this is the color of the juice. And so the perfume has this color, and that is reflected in the color of the font. Even this is very technical, you know. It's like open here, pull this. You can see the perforation. There you go. Let me. And the bottle is free almost. You can hear the liquid inside. Listen. Then we take the foil off with the drawing of the bottle. This is how it looks like on the inside. And there you have it. And then you would think, how do I open this can of spinach? Do I have to open it with a can opener on the top? There's nothing to pull it open. No, it's very beautifully designed. It's one of the most beautiful perfume packagings I've ever seen. I mean, of course I love my Chanel's, but this as a metal object, just so beautiful. And this is how simple it is. You just click it open at the bottom. Just because I'm laying it flat for the camera to see, I'm being extra careful because I don't want the bottle to fall out. Usually you would stand it up to open it. And I just said it. You see, you just say how easy it is to open, and then it doesn't want to open. Classic Dacob. Come on. Really? It's that type of... there. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is kind of new. In the past, this wasn't velvety red. This was translucent plastic. No, actually, it's transparent plastic. So on the inside, we have a plastic ring that keeps this bottle like in place so it doesn't move around. And then here we have a velvety holder. I preferred how it used to be in the past, to be honest with you. It was a transparent plastic that had like two kind of like teeth coming out on the sides, and they would just hold the bottle. Much more elegant. I mean, this... Yeah, no, not a fan of this. So that changed. Oh well, we can still live with it. Look at that iced corset. I'm touching with my fingerprints now. It's becoming oily because my body oil is touching it. So this is dirty minds. Don't think nasty thoughts. I'm just literally trying to make the bottle look better. Okay. Let's compare it to its almost vintage counterpart in 20 milliliter. Beautiful. Okay. Now you could see how much darker my juice has become after so many years, and this is how light it is when it's brand new. Nevertheless, this one it just smells more intense, but even the top notes are still completely there. They're wonderful. One beautiful thing that Gaultier said about the inspiration to this fragrance, that he remembers going to the theater when he was young with his mother, or, well, I don't know if it was his grandma or his mom, but he remembers this particular smell of dust mixed with lipstick and roses, and everything smelled of like an old kind of theater, but there was the smell of the memory of the opulence and the grandeur of presence on stage, and and the scintillating or the tintillating or the mesmerizing effect of the glamour of just that presence when the lights go on and then you're on stage. That's what he wanted to bring into this fragrance. There is rose in here, but as the entire concept of this utilitarian dystopian metropolis ideal that surrounds the fragrance, the presentation of it, also the smell of the perfume itself has a transformation in it. It's not your classical, comfortable, rosy scent. Yes, it's beautiful to smell and it's powdery and it has a bit of ginger there as well. But let's spray it on. Oh, it's so beautiful. It has all those elements, but at the same time, there's something transformative in it, or transforming, or transformed, if you may. There's something in this perfume that... I'm smelling it now. That makes you feel slightly abstract. It's like, I don't want to say it makes you feel like you're beside yourself, observing yourself from a distance, but it does make you feel like you're in some sort of movie. And it does smell like Gaultier, meaning it makes you feel as if no matter what you're wearing when you spray this on, it makes you feel like you're wearing Jean-Paul Gaultier clothes. That's the magic. That's exactly the magic of this perfume. You feel like you are wearing his clothes. No matter what you have on, if you have anything on, you could also have nothing on. That's all up to you. But it does feel as if though a spray of this transforms whatever you have on, and you are in one of his corsets, or you are in one of his metallic scenes with all the gears turning and rotating. You are in a boudoir, but you're also on stage, but you're also on one of his fashion shows. And it makes you really dream. And the fact that the actual eau de toilette has, the bottle is so simple. It doesn't have, it's not a limited edition version. I wanted the classic version. The fact that it has just this simple iced version of glass for the corset, just a hint of it. It's almost like an empty canvas, and you could portray onto it or paint onto it any imagination that you have or any vision that you have for this fragrance for you. And to me in particular, because also in the 90s I discovered Pedro Almodovar as a filmmaker. For me, it was a wonderful discovery. Kika was my first movie. I was obsessed with it. I would watch it in loop back then in VHS. And VHS, oh boy, that tape, I still have that VHS tape. I treasure it like the Holy Grail. I mean, it's demagnetized partially, but since then I have purchased Kika on DVD and also on Blu-ray. But the magic of the VHS, anyway, to see Victoria Abril, or her character in the movie Andrea Cara Cortada, wearing Gaultier from head to toe, and he portrayed her like a comic figure. And this was the beginning of reality TV and the beginning of the time when paparazzi moved into television and would follow famous people day and night everywhere, would terrorize them. She was one of those reporters. He transformed her through his costume into this zombie vampire villain dressed in black with scorched bits of leather and kind of blood pouring out of it. But the blood was actually red crystals that are, just like droplets of blood, but they're just so elegantly put. And her head has a helmet on, and on the helmet there is a camera. So the camera looks like it's an extension growing out of her head. And again, you see all this technical gear, technological metropolis, dystopian type of vision. That's Gaultier. So this reporter, she lives with her camera. Her camera is almost growing out of her head, and it's filming everybody and everything all the time. I'm not going to spoil how the movie ends, but whenever I wear this, I feel like I'm in that movie in some sort of way, but in a good way. I feel like I'm a part of those costumes. I feel like I'm a part of that costume making of that particular vision. And Gaultier is a visionary. I'm so sad that his Pret-a-Porter line is no longer with us. He only does haute couture now. Nevertheless, he's still a visionary. And this fragrance just brings back all the best of times. Classique to me has always been a special perfume. Even in those periods when it was more popular and you could smell it more around, it still has that strength of smelling slightly different than everybody. Even though you do recognize it, it's Classique, but still in every person it adds a little nuance of something special, and it's just their own particular detail, character that contributes something to this stage perfume, to this perfume that makes you feel like you are on that wooden stage. Now, maybe because in my mind, it's been so many times repeated to me by Gaultier in interviews that he envisioned this particular older theater, but still with gorgeous, velvet curtains, and there's that dust and smell of makeup still on those curtains from the theater, and then from that particular theater, and the wood has also absorbed the smell of the makeup and of the fragrance and of the flowers and of all the roses that have been thrown at all the actresses at the end of the shows. That memory within a fresh context is what Classique is, definitely. In particular, how he combines this, this concept, minus the red bit, but let's turn it upside down like this. It feels like there's this kind of softness and roundness of this bodily shape, and then you have this harshness of a metal can. But the metal can is round. He could have opted for some square shape or some other shape, but it's a round shape. Even his font is very soft. There are no harsh edges or cuts. Everything is beautiful. And it's the epitome of pop art too, if you think about it. Who doesn't remember the most famous pop art concept of them all, which is the Campbell's soup portrayal in the cans of Campbell's soup by Andy Warhol. This is Gaultier's version of it, just taken over the top into something more flamboyant and fun. The same as is the story that I told you at the beginning of the video with these tassels used normally for expensive pure perfumes. Now he transformed into something practical. It's something that you use to pull off this protection. Now, let's get to the smell itself. I have to say, though, as the camera overheated, there's always something positive in every negative situation. What does this mean? It means that I had those 5 minutes time to let the camera cool down and smell it, get into this, because this is the first time that I'm smelling the Puig version, not the Prestige edition, Puig edition. It is different, a little bit different. It is, and it's still completely classique, but what is different about it? Something is different, you guys. I don't mind it though. There's more rose in here, but it's not just the rose. I think something about it is, I don't want to say more artificial, because this one is also artificial. These are highly synthetic fragrances, which is fine. We're kind of used to it in a way. It's part of its charm, it's almost like a Thierry Mugler type of fragrance. Now, Thierry Mugler would have gone even further. Gaultier tones it down. All of these like soft curves, there's no rough edges and corners. That's exactly what this fragrance is. It's as if you would take a Thierry Mugler perfume and you would just soften all those edges. You would create a transition, softer transitions between the shadows and the highs and the lows, let's put it that way, where Mugler would go more, especially with Alien or with Angel. You could see the angel star, even how the bottle is cut. It's very crystal shaped. It's almost cut like a diamond. Also with Aura, you have those really sharp edges, and that's also how the smell is. This one is more rounded and soft, and the bottle really, really represents very well the smell. The whole concept of the packaging reflects the smell very well. However, the new edition, I don't know, maybe it's just too fresh. I kind of like this one, but this one also, we mustn't forget it has aged. So, and it has aged well, like a very good wine. This one is delicious. You just keep smelling it. It's very warm. There's more vanilla here in the dry down. I haven't hit the dry down yet with this one, but It is a bit more sparkly still. It's more fresh. I think there's like almost as if the ginger, which is Classique is famous for the ginger as well as for the roses and the powdery notes. It's as if there's more ginger present here. But then again, ginger is one of those ingredients. With time, this one, you smell out less of the ginger, which is fine by me. Not a big fan of ginger in fragrances, huge fan of ginger in teas, obviously, but mind you, only drink ginger when you're sick, because it's an antibiotic. If you drink it when you're not sick and you constantly drink ginger, you're going to become immune to it. Then it won't help you anymore when you really are sick, so be careful. Anyway, Dr. D in the house. Not a big fan of ginger in perfumes because it usually smells quite artificial. However, here it's sparkly. I would say it's almost as if there were an aldehyde mixed with the ginger, and it creates kind of a champagne-y effect, which is another thing he wants. He wanted that celebration of an opening night in an older theater, so you have to add also a touch of bubbly, zesty champagne on top of it all. But it does have a more fruity subtone, which is something I've noticed since Puig took over. Something that they kind of like to do with his fragrances. Also Scandal, which was the first fragrance launched under the Puig label, let's call it label, distribution. Quite fruity in a weird way. And unfortunately, when Puig took over, you know, Prestige probably had the rights to all of the most wonderful, well, this is the best one, they didn't have the rights for that one, but, you know, the white Le Mal, which is Fleur du Mal, Cocorico, they're all gone. By the power of two, you know, Fragile or the Fragile perfume, those were all amazing. They're all gone. All of them discontinued. And Scandal has a fruity subtone, and I'm not a fan of it, to be honest with you. And I feel as if though Puig would want to add a little bit of flavor of that fruitiness of candy fruitiness maybe of Scandal into Classique, but still Classique is Classique. I mean, let's not... As my camera died again, and the dry down is even closer, it's becoming its old self. Like, we totally... It's there, completely. Trying to see... The bottom also tells us... Made in France, thank God it's still made in France at least. And then it has the batch number, which is 83371, I would say. Let's see what it says here. 83371. I can check that online to see exactly the year it was produced. But also I've noticed the difference between the two bottles. This little puller tab here, the thread or the little mini rope is a beigey powdery color, and here it's silver. I like both. I think both are okay. Maybe the white, the beigey one is a bit more elegant than the silver one. And this little bit should have been longer up to there. But then you know me, I'm a perfectionist, so maybe they just cut them off differently as it happens on each one of the bottles, you know, maybe just a different length, I don't know. If they kept the bottle the same, that's good. Oh gosh, that dry down is amazing. The full power of the rose mixed with the softest of, you could say maybe it's kind of an orris rudi, maybe a little bit of iris, but it's a wet type of powder, but very delicate mixed with the rose. It's just so delicious, and now it's hitting me completely in the dry down. Oh my God, it's so beautiful. Really, and it doesn't take long. I mean, with all the breaks that I took with the camera dying on me, its beauty kind of blossomed completely already 20 minutes in after spraying it. And it's just amazing and very, very fresh. Really, really. It evolves and changes as time progresses. It does become better. Now, this in particular on my skin, and right now when it's around 35 degrees centigrade, so it's steaming hot and slightly humid, this one develops perfectly. Quickly to longevity and sillage. On clothes, it sticks around forever. On the skin, 10 hours, maybe even more. Again, depending on the temperature. Also depending on your own chemistry. And this is an eau de toilette. You know, since this one was released, an eau de parfum came out, the essence of the parfum came out, and even another concentration. The pure perfume, of course, not in distribution anymore, but still you could find it online. Also very powerful, beautiful smell, much warmer. This one has the sparkly, bubbly, champagne-y, aldehyde opening, which is also amazing. It's not in the pure perfume. The pure perfume has a warmth from the beginning, from the get-go. Really beautiful and elegant, obviously, but more, if this is more of a makeup and a powder, the pure perfume is more of a oily lipstick, you know, a very dense, saturated, pigmented lipstick that is very glossy. This one has more of the powdery touch. And projection, powerful. It will enter the room before you enter the room. But in a pleasant way. It doesn't kick a punch like opium would, or like all of the poisons would, or like all of the Thierry Mugler's would. This one says, I'm here, but I'm soft. But don't be fooled, just because it's soft, it's still a very passionate fragrance. It's still a fragrance that knows exactly where it wants to go. Knowing where you want to go is also something very particular to the 90s. The 90s, first half of the 90s. Already with the second half of the 90s, we had issues, you know. Things were starting to get more conservative. Anyway, mid to late 80s, early to almost mid-90s is that golden era of knowing where you're going for it, bold statements. Fashion was at its peak. All the luxury fashion houses had their best collections ever. All of these kind of new designers that are heads of artistic direction, heads of all of these brands today, they would dream, or they can only dream to come even a centimeter, kind of to step a centimeter closer into the direction which is light years away from them, to get closer to how fabulous and glamorous fashion was in mid to late 80s, early to almost mid 90s. And that was the time to make bold statements where people were less afraid and there was more determination to enjoy life than we have today. And there was much less political correctness. Fascinating to watch Pose, the TV show. I don't know if you guys watch it or not, but it does play in the late 80s and early 90s, and they kind of portray that feeling of hope in the air despite all the terrors that have happened in those years, and with all the diseases in particular that the show touches base on. But the concept of there was still a naive, it was the dawn of technology as we know it. It was right before internet began, right before social media messed up our lives. And there was a hope in the air that today we kind of don't really have. There's a lot more pessimism in the air today than there was back in the 90s. And that's why it's so beautiful to have a nostalgic trip down fragrance memory lane, with a fragrance like Classique by Paul Gaultier, because it does make you feel like there's still hope. I don't know. It does bring back those vibes of like you could do anything, everything is possible, and you could be fabulous, you could be glamorous, you can really be who you are, and everybody else on the street is just the same, also living out their dreams, and everybody lives in perfect harmony, and everybody's happy to be who they are. For the first time ever, nobody's ashamed of being who they are. Nobody's hiding parts of their character when they're out and about in society out of fear that others will judge them, because that's all we constantly do nowadays. We, even on social media, portray a fake image of ourselves, trying to hide who we truly are, trying to retouch who we truly are, trying to make our lives seem more interesting than they really are, just out of fear that showing who we really are might bore somebody to death. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the classic Jean-Paul Gaultier Classique review. If you liked it, please do thumb it up and let me know what your thoughts are on this fragrance, whether it be the new Puig rendition or the Prestige original. Either way, love you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Also on Patreon, superdacob, all spelled together. Don't forget to also check out my new show called Ask Dacob, where you get to call in live and talk to me and all of that while we are talking about whatever you want to talk about. Thank you guys so much. I love you and never give up on love. See you soon. Take care. Bye.